Chapter Prologue. Georgia is holding syringes and an ostrich egg. We are about to test this DNA. You just go and set the incubator, she said to Emma, who was reading some notes. It is ready. Give me the egg, Emma said, walking towards the incubator. Georgia gave her the egg and the syringes. Emma moved towards the machine, taking a syringe in her hand and injecting it into the egg one by one. The machine beeped for a second, then began to make a clicking noise. After 30 seconds, there were 3 beeps followed by a loud click. There you go, Emma said with a smile on her face. I am going to need another one of those eggs, Georgia said as she walked out of the room. Emma looked at the syringe. It had some sort of black mark on the side of it, which was clearly not supposed to be there. She ignored it. The week later, Emma was walking down the corridor when she heard someone shouting in the lab. She went inside and saw that it was Georgia. What's up? Emma asked, wondering what was wrong. Look at that. Georgia stammered. The incubator exploded, and made a huge mess on the floor. There were blood stains and eggshells on the floor. A few inches away from the broken machine there was a tiny Caudipteryx-type creature, lying dead on the floor. It had 2 sharp teeth sticking out of its mouth. That's strange, I don't know why it died. Emma said, looking at the creature. Well, we have to find out, so let's dissect it, Georgia said, picking up the creature. Georgia took the scalpel and cut open the creature, revealing the insides of it. Looks like a dinosaur, Emma said. Yes, it does, Georgia replied. After dissecting the creature, they found out that it was actually a hybrid of an ostrich and a Desmodus draculae. They called it a vampirich. So, where did this thing come from? What are you guys doing here? Lucy and Emily walked towards them. Our experiment failed. There is something wrong with our cloned DNA, Emma said. I've told you, guys. DNA cloning is not an easy task, Lucy said. We will figure it out. We will get it right next time, Emma said. I think we should leave this project for now, Lucy said. Yeah, I agree, Emily said. I think they are right. We tried everything we could, and nothing worked. I am out of this project, Georgia agreed. Around 6 in the evening, same day. Claudia went back inside the lab to get her bag, notes and wasted DNA samples. On the table she saw the leftover syringe with some DNA still left inside. What if I inject this in my blood? Georgia was curious. As she was holding the syringe, she wanted to use it on herself. Chapter 1, Eve, last year biology student. Eve wants to find an idea for their project. She wanted to do something different, something unique, and something crazy that no mind had ever thought of. A crazy idea by brilliant Dr. Eve. But how is she going to achieve this? At this moment, Eve was the most confused person on earth. Her mind was stuck. As usual, she typed it over the internet. How to find an idea for your project. Bunch of weird links popped up. She clicked on a random link. Step 1. Find yourself a mentor of your own choice with the required qualifications and hire him as project manager. That will give you enough leverage to follow your project plan. She did not read anything else on the page. The word mentor stuck in her mind. We need to find a mentor, she texted the girls in her group. And why is that? Georgia texted back. A couple hours later, when everyone met at college, they asked Eve about why she was so desperate about getting a mentor. You guys know that we need a unique idea for our project. And we are not getting any ideas, so we need a mentor to guide us, Eve said. The girls looked at each other and rolled their eyes. And why are you so desperate about this mentor thing? Georgia asked. Haven't you heard of a concept? Why do you have to get a mentor, if you can figure it out by yourself? Don't worry, sweetie, we will find some ideas. A little brainstorm and boom, others laughed. Eve looked at her with disappointment in her eyes. Then she said something she never thought to herself. We need to get a mentor, and that is final. She put on a serious face. I have an idea. Georgia said, when she saw Eve getting frustrated. Eve, your mom is a doctor, everyone said in unison. We can make her our mentor. She can give us good advice for our project. Georgia smiled. Eve went silent for a moment, then she said, that's a good idea. I will go home and ask Mom about this. Next day they all met up at Eve's house and planned their project with Eve's mom. They came up with a few project ideas, then wrote a proposal for each of them. Each of them took it home, and made a PowerPoint presentation of their proposal. Finally, they sent them to their professor. Their mentors gave them a few critical feedbacks, and they realized that they needed to change the direction of the project. Eve and Georgia went home, then the next day, the two of them met with Eve's mom. Mrs. Grace, thank you for being our mentor, Georgia said with excitement. Do you think we could get some additional guidance? Like what? You should know about some crazy idea we can do, that no one has ever thought of before, Eve said to her mother, looking at the proposals they had made early. Tell me your ideas, and I will give you my feedback on that, then you'll get a clear idea about how to do your project, her mother said. Thank you, that's so nice of you. But now I am so sleepy. We will tell you our ideas tomorrow, Eve said with a smile, and said goodbye. Chapter 2, Saturday, they intentionally missed their ice skating practice. The whole day Eve was lost deep inside her thoughts. Her mind was constantly thinking about what her mother had said last night. She cannot get a unique and crazy idea for the project. Every single idea that she searched over the internet was already done, or not crazy enough to be accepted by her. Georgia has been with her since last night, for a sleepover. They both decided to start a video call meeting for all of them to share their opinion related to the project. About 6:30 p.m., Emily, Lucy, Martha, and both of them joined the Zoom video call. Does anyone have any idea for the project? Eve asked. Don't worry, darling. If we can't find any idea, we can take any idea which is already done by someone, of course, and we will modify it, add our own stuff and make that idea our own. Martha gave her opinion, and it clicked with everyone. Everyone was silent for a moment. They all liked Martha's opinion. We should definitely go watch this new movie, Martha said, after the moment of silence. Which movie? Georgia and Eve asked. Morbius. It's a Marvel movie. In this movie the hero becomes a vampire, Martha. They all agreed to watch the movie, and they decided to meet after the classes. After the classes ended, Georgia, Eve and Martha met in the cafeteria. They sat at a table and started talking about the movie. Eve was excited by the vampire part of the movie. After they watched the movie, Eve went straight back home without saying a word. Everyone thought she did not like the movie, but the matter is something else. Eve went to her room and sat on her bed. She opened her laptop and started typing something. When she was done typing, she closed the lid and switched off the computer. She stood up and took a deep breath. She looked around her room, and then left the room. She went downstairs and into the kitchen. Her father was there, drinking his coffee while reading a book. He stopped when he saw Eve coming towards him. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing, Dad. I am here to get coffee, Eve replied. Her father nodded and turned back to continue reading his book. Eve sighed. She walked out of the kitchen with her cup of coffee and went upstairs. She lay down on her bed and stared at the ceiling. I don't know what to do with this idea, she muttered. Chapter 3. The whole day she was thinking about serum, portion, or whatever Dr. Michael Morbius did in the movie. She wanted to do the same thing, but still if she did that, it would be considered a copy of that idea. She liked that idea too much, but how can she do that? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Eve is whispering to herself continuously. She wants to do the vampire experiment, but not herself, or any other human. 20 minutes later she called Georgia, and asked her the same thing. What do I do? It's simple. Remember what Martha said. If you are not getting an idea, add something new to the idea, Georgia replied instantly. After talking to Georgia, Eve went straight to her room, sat on her chair with her legs folded. She started to search every little thing related to the topic. In her mind she wanted to be like Dr. Michael Morbius. So many papers, blank sheets, and biology notebooks were there on the desk in front of her, and there were some weird spiral DNA type stuff opened on her laptop. "What are you doing?" Emma asked, confused as she looked at the screen. "I am working on DNA, genetic cloning," she replied. "You, and your weird biology stuff," Emma grinned. "Here is your coffee." Emma put the mug on the desk and walked outside the room. "Hey, Mom. I am going outside to the market to have a little walk, and to buy some pens for my work," Eve shouted as she stepped outside the house. About 25 minutes later Eve came back home with a bag of canned food and some drinks, and there was a box of ballpoint pens in her hand. "Your daughter is going crazy," Emma whispered to her mom. "Stop it. She's your little sister. You should take care of her," Mom slapped her. Eve went back to her room, locked the door and continued doing her work. At 8:30 her mom opened the door and saw open canned food on the desk and Eve's head on the desk, taking a nap. "Ooh, my little baby," Mom said, smiling. Mom carried Eve to the bed, so she could sleep properly. The next morning Eve woke up early. She and Emma made breakfast for everyone. After eating breakfast they left for college. On their way, Eve told her mom about her DNA cloning experiment. "I want to make a vampire DNA, and I will put it in an egg, chicken egg, or an ostrich egg. Then I will put it in an incubator. I hope that the new bird or creature that came out of the egg, it would be a vampire version of the original thing," Eve said, smiling. Her mom smiled and told her that it was a tricky experiment. "Be careful." Her mom, Dr. Grace Edward, helped her a lot in this project. She told her that it won't be an easy task to clone DNA. Chapter 4. The very next day all of the girls went to the professor with the project proposal. At this time they all were worried that their project is not going to get accepted, because of it being so weird. "I am scared," Eve said, fingers crossed. "Don't worry, girl. Stay positive. Professor will definitely like our project," Georgia and Martha said in unison. There were only 2 other groups, waiting outside the office in the corridor with the files in their hands. The 2 other groups also have boys in it. They were looking so confident. Their group is the only one with all girls in the corridor, which makes Eve think that their project is less likely to get accepted. Eve started biting her nails as she saw the 2 groups coming one by one. Deep inside her mind she imagined that their project was not that good enough to be accepted, because the ideas were copied from the movie. Now it was their turn to walk inside the office with their project. "Hello girls, come inside. Sit down." Professor Luther points towards the couch. "Here is our project proposal, sir." Eve is standing right in front of his desk, putting the file onto the desk. "Sit down, young lady," Luther said, gesturing towards the chair in front of him, fixing his glasses and picking up the file to read. "Vampire DNA cloning" is written on the first page. Luther smiled. Eve and everyone else on the couch gave each other a weird look, one by one, then they looked at Professor Luther, who was busy reading the proposal. About 25 to 30 minutes later, Luther stood up from his chair and walked towards the edge of the desk. "Do you have a copy of this file somewhere?" Luther questioned Eve. "I want to keep this file and read it thoroughly." "I liked your idea. You can start your work at night lab." "Thank you so much, sir," Eve said, feeling relieved. "You can leave now, go back to your houses, and don't forget to email me your ID and names." Luther waved them goodbye. They all got out of the office happily, smiling and laughing. They were excited for their project getting approved. "Let's celebrate," Georgia shouted with joy. "We did it." "Yes, we did," Eve added. They all ran towards each other, hugging each other. "How are we going to clone the vampire?" Martha asked. "It's going to be difficult," Georgia replied. "But I know that we will find a way." That night they all gathered at the lab. carrying all documents that had some ideas of making a vampire. They decided to make a formal outline for what the actual DNA will do, some sort of a computer simulation or sketches on a drawing pad. Chapter 5. Eve dictated each and everything to the group as clearly as possible, hoping for the best results in return. For making the vampire DNA, we first need to find a bat and a wolf, Eve said, picking up the marker from the table and walking towards the whiteboard. Then we will extract the bat DNA, wolf DNA, and mix it up. She drew two amoeba-looking structures on the board. Simply, the plan is that we have to regenerate a whole living vampire, Eve continues. We already know. They all said in unison. We cannot do this experiment on humans, it could be dangerous. We need to find some rats, like in Morbius, or... Eve drew a box with buttons on the board. We will put the DNA inside an egg, put it in this incubator and wait to see what creatures come out. We need bat DNA and wolf DNA. Eve walking back and forth, talking to herself. We can easily find bats, but how can we arrange wolf DNA? She asked everyone. I can help you guys, Martha said. My uncle is a hunter. He can kill a wolf. No killing please, Eve replied. Just ask your uncle to bring wolf hair or saliva, Georgia said, holding hands with Martha. Later that day, Georgia and Eve went outside in caves to find bats. On the other hand, Martha, Lucy, and Emily went to the jungle with Martha's uncle to get wolf hair and saliva. Luckily the wolf was tamed, and belonged to an uncle's friend. They got the hair and saliva and went straight back home. Eve and Lucy found a recently dead bat and they collected blood from it. Their search was not finished yet. They need eggs, and the incubator to perform experiments. The very next day they brought the eggs, machine, and samples from bat and wolf. Everything is ready. Eve is writing something and on the other hand Georgia is preparing a concoction like in Powerpuff Girls. The process is really simple. Step 1. Make the concoction. Step 2. Inject it into the egg. Step 3. Put it inside the incubator. Step 4. Wait. After a week, they all entered the lab and saw that the incubator exploded, creating a huge mess around the lab. They repeated the experiment with more DNA this time. Got the same result in 4 days. Again the incubator exploded. We need to try a different sort of egg, Eve said. Chapter 6. Georgia is holding syringes in an ostrich egg. We are about to test this DNA. You just go and set the incubator, she said to Eve, who was reading some notes. It is ready, give me the egg, Eve said, walking towards the incubator. Georgia gave her the egg and the syringes. Eve moved towards the machine, taking a syringe in her hand and injecting it into the egg one by one. The machine beeped for a second then began to make a clicking noise. After 30 seconds, there were 3 beeps followed by a loud click. There you go, Eve said with a smile on her face. I am going to need another one of those eggs, Georgia said as she walked out of the room. Eve looked at the syringe. It had some sort of black mark on the side of it, which was clearly not supposed to be there. She ignored it. A week later, Eve was walking down the corridor when she heard someone shouting in the lab. She went inside and saw that it was Georgia. What's up? Eve asked, wondering what was wrong. Look at that. Georgia stammered. The incubator exploded, and made a huge mess on the floor. There were blood stains and egg shells on the floor. A few inches away from the broken machine there was a tiny Caudipteryx-type creature, lying dead on the floor. It had 2 sharp teeth sticking out of its mouth. That's strange, I don't know why it died, Eve said, looking at the creature. Well, we have to find out, so let's dissect it, Georgia said, picking up the creature. Georgia took the scalpel and cut open the creature, revealing the insides of it. Looks like a dinosaur, Eve said. Yes, it does, Georgia replied. After dissecting the creature, they found out that it was actually a hybrid of an ostrich and a Desmodus draculae. They called it a vampirich. So, where did this thing come from? What are you guys doing here? Lucy and Emily walked towards them. Our experiment failed. There is something wrong with our clone DNA, Eve said. I've told you, guys. DNA cloning is not an easy task, Lucy said. We will figure it out, we will get it right next time, Eve said. I think we should leave this project for now, Lucy said. Yeah, I agree, Emily said. I think they are right. We tried everything we could, and nothing worked. I am out of this project, Georgia agreed. Around 6 in the evening, same day. Georgia went back inside the lab to get her bag, notes and wasted DNA samples. On the table she saw the leftover syringe with some DNA still left inside. What if I inject this in my blood? Georgia was curious. As she was holding the syringe, she wanted to use it on herself. She took the syringe, pressed it against the vein of her right hand. She injected the DNA inside her body. She waited for 30 minutes and nothing happened. This is a waste of time, she whispered to herself, and walked towards the exit door. Chapter 7. For the first 30 minutes after Georgia injected the DNA in herself, nothing had happened. She went back home and after she woke up the next day something weird happened to her stomach. She had a headache, and she is hearing sounds of people talking, car horns, and some other weird stuff. What's happening to me? Georgia bent down, covering both of her ears with her hands. She fainted. After 8 minutes, she woke up from the floor and found herself drooling blood. She rushed towards the dark bathroom and started vomiting. Soon she went back inside her room and she noticed that when she was in the bathroom, there was no headache. The room lights were hurting her eyes, which in result caused a headache. She stood up and turned off the lights. An extraordinary thing happened. She can see clearly with the lights off. Why God, why? Georgia whispered to herself. Come down for breakfast, Georgie. Her mom shouts from downstairs. Georgia goes downstairs and sees her mother sitting on the table eating pancakes. Hi Mom. I didn't know you are up early today, Georgia said while walking towards the kitchen. On her way to the kitchen, the sunlight from the opened main door shone on her face. Her skin started burning from the sunlight. What's wrong? Why do you look so pale? Are you sick or something? Her mother asked. Georgia grabbed her face and tried feeling her face. Nothing, Mom, nothing happened to me, Georgia said, sitting next to her. Are you sure? Because I heard some weird noises coming from your room last night. And then I saw you lying on the floor this morning. You looked like you were having a bad dream. Am I making noises? She thought, biting her lips. Yeah. Sure, everything is okay. She spent the rest of the time inside her dark room. No one that day came upstairs, so she is only with herself for the rest of the day, lost deep in her thoughts. For about a week Georgia didn't go back to the lab to work on the project, and she also avoided all the calls and messages from the girls in her family. Chapter 8. All the girls were working on the project, trying new techniques and new calculations. For a few days everything was normal, no one cared, they thought that Georgia wasn't feeling well to come to the lab. On the third day, it seemed something was odd. Why is Georgia not coming to the lab? Is she okay? Eve said, chewing the back of the marker. What could have happened to her? Martha asked. We should call her, Lucy said, picking Emily's phone from the table. Everyone called her, messaged her, but she was constantly ignoring all the calls and the messages. They also tried to email her, but she didn't reply. Next day there was a knock on the door at Georgia's house. Her mother opened the door with a sweet smile on her face. Hey Auntie. Where is Georgia? I want to meet her, Eve asked, standing with the bouquet of flowers. She's upstairs, you can go, her mom said, pointing towards the stairs. Eve went upstairs. The whole first floor is pitch black. Georgia, Georgia. Eve shouts, walking against the wall. She knows where her room is, but she is still being careful not to step on something bad. Finally she got the doorknob, and she entered the room without knocking. Are you there in Georgia? Eve shouts, Successfully she found the light switch and turned it on. Georgia puts hands on her eyes as soon as the light shined on her face. What happened? Why didn't you come to the lab? Is everything okay? Eve said, sitting on the bed. I don't know what happened, but I am feeling sick. My head hurts, my stomach aches, I feel like vomiting. I don't think I will be able to come after a few days, Georgia fumbled, covering her face with the pillow. Oh, I am sorry to hear that. But I am here for you, so just relax and get better. We will wait for your return, Eve said, hugging Georgia. Her sixth sense told her that there was something wrong. Georgia wasn't telling the whole truth. I know what happened. I saw you. I had to go now, Eve said. It is a trick question to get the truth out of her. She started walking towards the door. No. You are not going anywhere. Just listen to me, Georgia said, standing up. It was a mistake. I am curious to see what will happen if I use the DNA on myself. Georgia stopped right there. Then what? Tell me. Please, Eve asked. She wants to know the whole scenario. I tried it on myself and now I think I am becoming a vampire, Georgia said, digging her face inside the pillow. Oh my God, they both saw Emily, Lucy, and Martha standing at the door. All of them heard what Georgia did. They all came closer to Georgia to console her. Please don't tell anybody, Georgia and Eve said. Chapter 9, Hey girls, I have something new. As we know that our old DNA doesn't work. So I came up with new calculations, Eve ordered Emily, Martha, and Lucy, who were roaming inside the lab without any reason. Okay madam, they all said in unison, laughing. Eve tried to say something but her mom messaged her at the last moment. I forgot my bag at the hospital. Can you please get it from my office and bring it home for me? Emma and Luke are out of country, so please do it. Hurry up, okay mom, Eve replied with a weird face emoji. I am going home for some time. You guys keep doing your work. Eve went back home, again giving us the orders to do the work. Hey, everyone. Come here, Martha whispered, guiding them towards the DNA samples. Yeah, what? Emily and Lucy said in unison. We have to try this, like Georgia did. I want to know what it feels like to be a vampire. You guys try this too, and if you don't want to try it, shut your mouth and don't say a word to Eve. Okay. Martha gave them orders. They all injected the DNA in themselves, but they feel nothing like Georgia did. Around 40 minutes later, Eve entered the lab, saw them all standing behind the table, staring at her with an innocent face. Eve ignored them and walked towards the other table to check the DNA in the test tubes. There is something wrong with it. It shouldn't be that liquidy, Eve whispered. Did you guys do something with this? Martha talked on behalf of both of them. I think there is something wrong with our new calculations. Don't worry, we have so much wolf and bat DNA. After about 20 minutes, Martha, Emily, and Lucy, all three of them ran towards the washroom, to vomit. There is something fishy. They are hiding something, she whispered to herself. Chapter 10. Next day morning, when Eve entered the lab, it was empty. She saw no one around. She sat down on the chair, took her phone out, and when she was about to call the girls, she saw someone opening the door of the lab. It was Georgia. Hey. Welcome back, Eve smiled. Why is the lab empty? Where is everyone? Georgia said, rolling her eyes around the lab. Eve paused for a moment, trying to think in her brain that should she tell her or not. Then she said, I think they did the same thing with the DNA, and now they are hiding, like you did. I was not hiding anything. I was worried a little bit. After a pause, Georgia finally said, looking away from Eve, okay. I was hiding. I am scared to tell anyone. Now. Are you feeling okay? Eve asked. Yeah. Everything is okay, but that DNA made me quite active, and I can hear stuff so clearly. There is bad stuff to it too, Georgia said, making weird faces. Tell me the bad stuff. Eve took out the writing pad. I can hear stuff so clearly, but there are some weird voices in my ear, like people talking in my mind. I cannot see them. Sun and the bright light hurts my skin. And Georgia paused and did tell her the whole thing. And tell me please. Eve is getting curious. And I am always craving blood, like a vampire, Georgia said. Oh my God, Eve put both hands on her head. She was shocked to see that her best friend had turned into a real living vampire. They both ran outside the college to find them, before they hurt anyone. First they went to Martha's house and asked her parents if she was home or not. They asked the same question from Emily and Lucy's parents, but all of them gave the same reply: she didn't come back home. It is getting too late. They both decided to go to the cafe because now it is useless to go on the search for these girls. It is better to wait for them. Even if they went to search for them, it would be a waste of time because they were not lost, they were hiding. I think we should stop this project before it creates much more chaos, Eve said, as they were sitting in the corner of the cafe. We can't stop the project. After a sip of water, Georgia said, we have to find the antidote for this vampire DNA. Georgia started biting her fingernails.